Good evening, this is the Oscar Expert with Brother Bro, and it's time for updated Oscar predictions for December, Part 2, Below the Line categories. I want to remind everybody that you can make Oscar predictions on my app that I developed with my two hands, called Award Expert, on the App Store. Will be on the Play Store in about a month. And I'm going to use some of the graphics from the app from Brother Bro's wonderful user interface design to display the predictions on this video. And I'm going to be referring to my own list on my little device here, making predictions wherever I want, as long as there's internet. Cinematography, Oppie's winning, ain't a contest. All right, what's number 2? Is Maestro number 2 or is Poor Things number 2?
They can both be number 2. Like, it doesn't matter. They are quite interchangeable here. I do wish this was a 3-horse race and that Maestro and Poor Things were being considered for the win. But I don't think that's the year we're in. I think it's just Oppenheimer is going to take it. Killers of the Flower Moon is locked. I mean, if anything from this 4 didn't get nominated, it would be an absolute shocker.
Yeah. I'm still going to go with Lucas Zal for Zone of Interest. I think if Zone of Interest is going to get any tech nominations or make it into picture, if it doesn't get this, I'll be pissed. Because honestly, if it were up to me, I might give that cinematography. Now that I've seen the movie 3 times, and I think it's just such a masterpiece, there is no movie with more powerful images this year. Hoping to see ASC and BAFTA go for that.
ASC's a fan of Lucas Zal as well, is that
They
right?
are. They gave it to him for Cold War.
Yeah. And he has fans in the Academy, clearly, from his 2 nominations. That
they were both black and white, though.
But they're for international movies, like not exactly expected, you know? Kind of outside of the box picks.
They will go very outside of the box for black and white. But still, I think that if this movie is going to be in Best Picture, which we are currently predicting, and you know, with I don't know how much confidence we have with that. I mean, it made sound and score on the shortlist, which I thought that's essential, and I think it will do very well on the BAFTA long list. So, I think we're going to be okay with this movie.
And funnily, we haven't coordinated, but I have the same like down the line list. I have the same order, except that I have The Color Purple like really low. And maybe that's not fair. Maybe it should be higher.
I don't think The Color Purple is impossible if it sneaks back into Best Picture.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it's impossible, but I don't feel like it's going to happen.
They nominated him for Nightmare Alley and Shape of Water.
Yeah.
Saltburn is getting some hype, and it would deserve a cinematography nomination.
Saltburn's like one of those films where I think it could get in on a lone nomination. Linus Sangren, you know, is one of our best, and he won for La La Land already. So obviously
but he
people
didn't get
know
in
him
for Babylon, and he didn't get in for First Man. So I think he's going to struggle to get in as a lone nominee for this one.
I think Saltburn really deserves cinematography, though, so that's kind of a shame.
Society of the Snow, I mean, that's kind of an outside shot. The cinematographer is not, you know, an Academy member. If it was somebody that was well known, I would think it would have a better shot. Barbie has been surprisingly, it apparently is 5th place in terms of critics groups for cinematography nominations. I don't really get it. I think the cinematography works for the movie, but I don't really see why it needs an Oscar nomination. But apparently, some people think that that's a thing. I don't know if they're going to double nominate Prieto, though. I don't think anything else is happening, though. I think that's about it. Best Editing, Oppenheimer is taking this as well, and it's going to be very easy. And it should be easy. Why shouldn't we give an Oscar to Jennifer Lame for what she did with Oppenheimer? That's insane. One of our best editors, Hereditary, Marriage Story. My God, the editing in those films is immaculate. And Oppenheimer is a whole nother level, a whole nother type of film. She's winning it, folks. You got Killers of a Flower Moon. That's probably number 2, I guess. Why not? Poor Things, I think that should be fine. It did get Critics' Choice, and it has been getting, you know, a fair number of critics' noms. The Holdovers, I just think it's a big contender overall. We've been saying it for the whole year that I think it, you know, could just show up in editing, but it's not a lock. You never know.
Yeah, it's not showy.
But sometimes they nominate movies that aren't that showy in editing because they just like them. And The Holdover seems to fit the bill. I also think that American Fiction fits kind of that same bill, but I think The Holdovers is more of like a top 5 movie than American Fiction.
I think Maestro is an outside shot for editing, and one that is a little more showy. Like, you might be thinking about the editing just a little bit more.
I actually wouldn't say
the cuts
that.
feel very deliberate in that film.
That's not the type of thing that they like, is it? Not typically. Not typically.
I don't know.
I mean, I think Maestro has too many long takes to get into the category.
You think
Remember, Roma didn't even get nominated for editing?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, that's fair.
But Tar got nominated. And you said earlier on, you thought that Anatomy of a Fall could be like Tar.
Yeah,
in getting an editing nomination. And,
yeah.
and maybe.
I mean,
maybe. So a lot of people, you know, you there are scenes to think about. You know, the courtroom scene with the tape playing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, there are moments. That's a little bit of a long shot. I'd love to see a nomination for Zone of Interest, but nobody's been doing it. Nobody's been doing it. Something worth talking about is like, could Maestro slip? It's a thought that has entered my mind. It's been being dunked on a lot online, but the Letterboxd score also dropped from 3.6 to 3.4. And also the audience scores, like Rotten Tomatoes is like a 78. IMDb is like a 6.9. It's not...
It's a 6.8 last time I checked.
See, it's dropping, and that's not that good for like a Bradley Cooper film.
The more people are seeing it, the more people are agreeing about the movie being
underwhelming. It has its fans, but you need #1 votes to get nominated for Best Picture, and I don't know. I mean, Nightmare Alley, I wouldn't imagine that's a movie with #1 votes, but it got in. But like Maestro, I mean, look, in a competitive year like this, where you have May December is still like a kind of a strong movie, and you have The Color Purple. You have a lot of things.
Yeah,
it maybe that's one of the ones that slips that's gotten in a Golden Globe and Critics' Choice.
Yeah, but if you think about Mank, you might say, okay, it's the same thing as Mank.
That's fair, but Mank also slipped in adapted screenplay and editing.
Right. So this is where I would agree. Like, I think Maestro probably still gets into Best Picture. Don't get ahead of yourself, but. Could it slip in a category like editing? Does that make it weaker for editing since we're on this category? Yeah. I think it definitely matters how high your movie is ranked overall.
Or you could argue that it's like Ma Rainey, which got both lead acting nominations and 3 techs, which is exactly what Maestro would get if it didn't.
The slippage might be more like, okay, it doesn't get Best Screenplay, right? And Best Screenplay is already hard for it to get.
I put it in last video. I think it probably won't get Best Screenplay. And what
will May December.
Netflix's other film, which could overtake it. Production design. It's Barbie v Poor Things. Yeah. I watched a featurette on Poor Things, and I'm like, holy shit.
I think Poor Things could maybe win.
But I think
how much do you think it's like 60-40 right now?
I don't know. I mean, I definitely I'm like kind of firmly Barbie, because I just think that they might go nuts for Barbie, and that's just one of the most prominent like technical elements of any movie this year is just the production design in Barbie. And Poor Things is also mind-blowing. Like both these movies are mind-blowing. It's unfortunate they can't tie.
My mind is more blown, though, for Poor Things. I feel like it put me inside of an art painting, whereas like Barbie put me inside of a dollhouse. They're both artistic. And, Barbie, I love how tactile it is and how everything feels like you can play with it. And it doesn't feel like there's CGI, like, littering the frame. It's all, like, actual things you can touch.
Barbie's also just one of the most like obvious examples of production design. Like anybody,
but Poor
is
Things
thinking
is sort
about
of
that
too.
During the movie.
It feels like Poor Things would win production design in any year, except for maybe the one where Barbie is in Best Picture and is doing like extremely well, probably like a top 3 movie.
Yeah, well, Poor Things might be a top 3 as well.
Yeah, I think that's the top. I think they are top 3.
So if Poor Things won Best Picture, I don't know if that would make it change for me. I mean, you don't have to win Tech Awards to go along with Best Picture, but if Poor Things was really the front runner, maybe that does give it a little bit of an edge. Oppie and Killers are making it in easy. And then for the 5th slot, you're between a few movies. Critics have been going out for Asteroid City, but you don't really get a lot of lone production design nominees at the Oscars. You just don't. So I don't think that's going to happen, and they did not go for The French Dispatch when everybody thought they would. The Color Purple doesn't seem to be that strong in production design at the moment, but there's definitely a case for it. But if it's not in picture, I don't think it's going to happen. Napoleon could happen, and Napoleon may not be a lone nominee here. It did make a few shortlists, and Napoleon has a few categories where it's like, okay, it could get sound, it could get costumes, it could get VFX.
So my take on that is I just don't think it's production design. I can see it getting into score, visual effects, and costumes before I could see it getting into production design.
What about Maestro? I don't know if...
Maestro would... I think it might be in there if it was a stronger film overall. If it was a top 5 movie, I think it's a bottom 5.
The production design in Maestro isn't insane, though.
It's probably not like a no-brainer nomination.
And this is why I have the Zone of Interest in. And this hasn't really gotten that many noms so far, but I feel like if it's in picture, people ought to start paying attention. They built the whole damn house. The garden is... that's an insane set.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful set. And people should pay attention and nominate it. And maybe this is hope-dicting, but I feel like this may get a BAFTA nomination and maybe even a period nomination as well from the guilds, if we look.
Yeah.
Poor Things and Barbie will probably be in fantasy. So that already knocks out a couple movies.
That would show some serious love for Zone of Interest if that got
It would. It would. And I don't know if Zone of Interest is going to show up at a ton of guilds. Maybe like one of the sounds or something. I don't see why people shouldn't start talking about it the way they were talking about Parasite. And this category is more tied to Best Picture than most texts. Costume design. I agree with you that Barbie is more likely to win costumes than production design even.
Yeah, it has the edge on Poor Things more so in costumes than it does in production design.
Yeah, I mean, Poor Things could win, maybe.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, this feels a little bit like a Black Panther versus the favorite. I mean, well, I think Poor Things is like, it's maybe even the favorite on steroids, so maybe you can't even say that. But
We all love that mink coat that Ryan Gosling wears.
everybody has like stupid wristbands on, and like
Yeah.
I love all of it.
But I think my favorite piece of production design from Barbie is like the leather couches that they have when the Kens take over. Every couch is like a black leather couch that you'd find in like a football basement.
Killers is getting in, as it is in every tech. And then you have your ambiguities. This is not locked in, but it is probably the most likely tech for the color purple overall. It has a scene about pants. For the fifth slot, though, you know, I used to have Maestro. And I was saying, well, you know, even though it's not like getting crazy nominated everywhere, it is Mark Bridges, and he has
Yeah.
pulled off surprises before.
Yeah, and the costumes are really notable in the movie.
Yeah, but it could miss this.
I don't know. I think it gets it. I think
You
it
think
gets
it does?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, nobody's been going out for it so far.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
but
for him to score 2 nominations for
I'll
films
tell you
other
that
people are going for?
nobody has nominated Maestro for costumes yet.
Nobody?
Nobody.
Really?
Nobody. I'll tell you that Napoleon's gotten a handful of nominations, and it's made it onto some short lists, and that movie very much has the type of costumes that the Oscars go for, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess if I had to say what could compete with Maestro, maybe I would say Napoleon.
And Napoleon, like, to be fair, you know, it did make a lot of money. It was like a really big movie that I think a lot of people have seen. Didn't get nominated for House of Gucci, though. People thought that would maybe happen. It's very different, though. I don't know. I feel like Napoleon has the type of thing that they do. But Maestro's close. It's close between those two. Maybe it's both of them, not color purple. I don't know. Priscilla would be very nice, and I hope it happens, but what he's been doing it, Critics' Choice didn't go for it.
Yeah.
It's a little small.
Be a good nomination, but
They didn't even shortlist it for makeup.
Yeah.
So Oppenheimer, though, I think is a maybe.
Really?
That's maybe like, oh, it's kind of overperforming.
that's just from lack of imagination, probably.
That's fine. They have definitely done lack of imagination nominations before with stuff. It's a lot of men in suits, but, you know, The Irishman got nominated, and that was a lot of men in suits.
Yeah.
Makeup, here's a shortlisted category, so we are just ranking the shortlisted films. Maestro is number 1. I haven't really thought about, like, that tie between makeup and Best Actor very much recently, and, like, thinking about Cillian Murphy and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll come back to that at some point. Maybe it'll all
work out, and they'll both win together.
Poor Things is gonna get in. Oppenheimer, you know, that was kind of number 5 for us. What got snubbed from here was Barbie. That was one of the things that got snubbed. Oppenheimer, though, you know, they aged like all the main actors in that movie, and they didn't do it in like the most crazy way, but like they did some makeup, and that movie made the short list, and so I think that you could probably have it in. I wouldn't be shocked if it didn't show up because there are showier works here. But I think it makes sense. And you have Society of the Snow, or we have Society of the Snow. Not everybody does, but I've looked at images of the movie. Haven't seen it yet. We'll see it soon. But every scene has actors with blistered, frostbitten faces.
I mean, look at The Revenant. Isn't it sort of similar to that?
or like All Quiet, you
Yeah.
know, All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah,
I think
that's a
I
strong
think it
one.
seems like it.
Yeah.
I do think it seems like it.
I mean, it made a few shortlists, right? It made 2 shortlists, I think. Visual effects and makeup. They got
and
snubbed
score
for sound.
and score.
Oh,
Got snubbed
score.
for sound though.
Yeah, that's pretty good, though. I mean, 3 shortlists.
Yeah, I think that movie
It's going to show up somewhere, right? I mean, is it
couple
going to get no text at all? I think it's going to get 1
that's
or 2.
possible. I mean, we all remember that random Christmas musical from Netflix that got like 4 shortlists but didn't make anything.
Huh.
And then number 5, you know, I was really considering The Last Voyage of the Demeter because I looked it up and I was like, okay, that's like just a makeup guy, right? But they don't go for horror that much. I mean, The Wolfman won.
Yeah, but there
Upon a
probably
Time.
aren't a lot of films shortlisted even that are horror.
Well, yeah, but that's also the bias too. And
Sure.
horror films also have a lot of
But
makeup.
once it's there, you know.
Well, I kind of agree with that. And apparently a lot of the team members on this have been nominated before.
That's important.
But I don't know. I don't know how much they care about, like...
The thing that gets me is, like, because it's a branch category, like, if this was the Critics' Choice, They would just do like their top 5 favorite movies.
Well, they already did.
The Critics' Choice would do Killers of the Flower Moon here.
But they didn't.
Yeah, I know, but if this was shortlisted, they would just do it.
Sure.
Or they would be like, oh, I saw Napoleon, or like whatever. They would just do the movie that's closest to Best Picture. For the makeup branch, right? I think that everything has a little bit of a shot. And since this exists in the category, like they're going to watch it if they want to do their homework. And maybe it has like the most makeup, right?
Rubber vampire teeth. I don't know. I can't tell. I think it's very possible. I think that you shouldn't put it at the bottom of your list. I think that people who are putting Beau is Afraid on, I mean, I get it. He ages, but it's a lot of beard. I don't know if it's enough. Like,
yeah,
I don't want to get too optimistic and say Beau is Afraid is going to be an Academy Award nominated film.
Definitely a wild pick for the shortlist, and it's going to stay at that.
Yeah, but I have it at 7 because I think it's more possible than some other movies like Killers. I can already tell a lot of you are doing they're doing what you did with West Side Story, which is what you said. Oh, West Side Story is on the shortlist. Well, that's in Best Picture. It's getting a bunch of nominations. Let's just throw that in there. That's not how the branch thinks. The branch wants to go with the prosthetics. This is why I said Coming to America is getting fucking nominated, you bastards, and you better believe me when it happens, and it did.
Well, so, we can actually see what our audience is thinking because of my app. People think Killers of the Flower Moon is number 4 for makeup.
I don't think so.
And I just disagree, like, for what? I think people are going to argue that they like the movie so much that they're going to have to nominate it everywhere, right? No, just they don't have to because there are other interesting choices here.
Actually, well, DiCaprio's teeth are fake.
I know. There's like a couple small things.
But that's not even
But it's
enough.
not impressive.
Like, even the
It's like the fact that they didn't even shortlist or long list Oppenheimer and visual effects. It's like, oh, well, let us nominate Oppenheimer everywhere, right? Like, no, because the branch actually cares about like nominating stuff that makes sense.
That's why I feel like Napoleon and Ferrari are kind of the same thing. It's like, I don't know, like, what specifically, like, I would need to see somebody who looks completely different in order to put them higher.
Adam Driver has a hairline, and that's all I can think of.
That's why Golda, Demeter, and Beau is Afraid are higher, because at some point they put some motherfucker in a makeup chair for 4 hours to get all these prosthetics on.
Yeah.
At some point.
Listen, Golda is strong, I feel. Like, I don't know how we were underestimating that the whole year, being like, nah, no one's going to see it. Like, now that it's on the short list, don't you think, oh, of course, this has Helen Mirren caked in fucking makeup, and they're making her into a historical figure. Caked.
No,
it looks like a film that was always destined to be a makeup player, and we dismissed it because we said, yeah, no one's seeing that, no one cares.
We kind of said wait for the short list, and here it is.
And there's like a thing about, okay, like this person was, a high-ranking Israel person, and like that's a controversial topic. But I don't think it's gonna really matter when it comes to like a makeup nomination. I feel like this is like number 3 or 4.
3 or 4? Honestly. I don't think so.
Why? Why against? What's the case
I think there's
it?
Something slightly uncanny about the makeup. Ever so slightly uncanny about it.
I don't know. You transform Helen Mirren. Like, if this was in Best Picture...
Like, I don't really care that nobody likes or saw the movie that much, because I think that it is more important that somebody's caked in makeup. And so I would put it in. I would put it in. I think Demeter's close, but... Yeah. This is the 5 that I, for score, this is also a shortlisted category. I don't think there were any catastrophic snubs on here as far as I remember. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of possibilities in this category.
Well, The Killer was snubbed.
Whole lot.
That's like the big
Yeah,
one.
The Killer was snubbed, but The Killer was never going to get nominated, if we're being honest. Oppenheimer, I think, is going to win this. Killers is definitely number 2. Definitely number 2. Poor Things, that's
definitely number 3.
Yeah,
People
I know. I'm very slightly nervous about, like...
Really, though?
I don't know.
I feel like they're going to like that.
It was very
people
prominent,
are loving Poor Things.
Very prominent. I mean,
the only way it wouldn't get nominated, I feel, is if people didn't like Poor Things. But
I still think that the way that this composer was plucked from nowhere... Like, I listened to his album that he did before, like... Wild guy, not even anything remotely, like, popular or studio-y about it. What a fucking score.
Yeah.
Crazy shit.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get nominated, he'll be pissed.
Oh yeah, but I don't know why you have like little faith.
Just because they play favorites in this category really hard sometimes.
But he's getting nominated everywhere.
Fine, I know he is, but the Oscars play favorites a lot. Spider-Verse is doing well so far.
Yeah,
and if you like to see it, I think it can happen. I think there's also a world where we're very disappointed and it gets snubbed on Oscar morning. But
this category has the potential to be very disappointing. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, on that note, we're kind of going for the best case scenario here with this top 5.
Yeah, you putting Zone of Interest in. See, getting shortlisted for score, very good sign. Like, it might get, I think it will get nominated for a BAFTA for score, for example.
And the Globe, it got the Globe, man.
Yeah, and getting the Globe. It's doing better than I thought. But I always thought Zone of Interest wouldn't get nominated for score, even if it did get Best Picture, because it's in the beginning and it's in the end. In the end, I mean, it's in the credits. And in the beginning, I mean, it plays over a black screen. But that's kind of a good thing, isn't it? Because
it's a great thing.
There's only one thing that you're thinking about for the first 5 or 6 or whatever minutes.
Not 5.
Well, it's like
about 3 minutes.
And hopefully people stay for the credits as well to hear that piece. But that would be very unconventional. Used so sparingly throughout the middle for a nomination.
Every single second that score is playing, it is like whereas a lot of
really
films,
like it's 15 minutes of score, right?
But it's no, it could be less. But it's so prominent. So prominent when it plays. There's no part of the movie where the score is blending in with the film. A lot of movies get nominated because 10 minutes of the score is spectacular and the rest is fine. What really is the difference here, where you just have 10 spectacular minutes of score and there's no filler? It's also just one of the texts that Zone of Interest seems to be the strongest in so far, and we think it might do decently.
But there's a lot they could do here. I mean, look at these next look at these next 4 contenders, okay? Elemental is Thomas Newman. No one is as much of a stickler for a Thomas Newman score as the Academy Awards.
I said it before. They've nominated him 15 times. The Golden Globes have nominated him like twice, and the BAFTAs nominated him like 4 times.
Including Passengers, like the most unexpected nomination of all fucking time.
And that's not the only one. This is why Thomas Newman can sneak attack no matter what.
Okay,
I do think Elemental's weak, though. Like, overall, like, it's at best number 3 in animated feature, maybe not even number 3.
Well, the other motherfucker who can always sneak in is John Williams for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Betcha. The fact that he's
even for this, the fact that even for this he could possibly sneak in is terrifying. But look, he's the GOAT. Like, he might be the greatest film composer of all time. It's debatable. Like, it's between him and maybe a couple other people. Like, whoever did Psycho, Bernard Herrmann. So, like, maybe one of them. Oh, he's one of the most nominated people in general for Oscars.
And he got all 3 Star Wars sequels, including
all 3.
Yeah, including that fucking last one.
That is what completely blows my mind. That keeps me up.
Because that movie had a terrible reputation, on par with Indiana Jones, and how bad that was. But
right.
I will say this: he did not get nominated for Crystal Skull, and that's probably due to how poor Crystal Skull's reputation was. This movie also has a bad reputation. The Boy and the Heron got the Golden Globe nomination, didn't get the Critics' Choice nomination. Boy and the Heron has not been getting that many nominations in general from critics groups.
Yeah.
There's like, they're one thing, and music branch might like, and they might be like, ooh, the opportunity to nominate Joe Hisaishi, but at the same time, I mean, they haven't nominated him before, so like, why,
It's also not from a studio that's campaigning, right? Like, this is not...
G-Kids.
Right. This is not Encanto, where they were like, hey, everybody, like, there's this composer, we need you to nominate her, thank you. It would be like a grassroots thing to get him nominated, and the fact that we don't really see people doing it, like the Critics' Choice didn't do it. Leave it to them to start a grassroots movement, am I right? But I think that probably doesn't happen. I just think we need to see it building more.
Siding to the Snow, though, I mean, I think that will get into a couple texts, perhaps. Yeah. Maybe this is one of them, and people have said the score is fantastic. I can't wait to hear it, but Michael Giacchino got brutally snubbed for The Batman last year, even on the shortlist, so it's not like he's a favorite. I don't think his name recognition is there, where he's, like, getting everything in there. But
he's
this movie
big.
could make it in.
He's pretty big.
Barbie, this is one of the categories where it could overperform in.
Yeah, just like Everything Ever All at Once.
The Critics' Choice nominated Barbie for Best Score. They just blew their load on the movie, so I don't know how much I can trust that.
The score is good, like I listened to it.
But I feel like the movie's more about the songs. American Fiction, I think that's a little bit of an outside shot. But I just don't see the case for it being like in the top 5.
Yeah.
I'm a little weary of American Symphony, but I feel like they'll just go for that in the song category and call it a day with John Batiste. It almost never happens, though. Well, so just a documentary.
Oh, a documentary? That would be like unprecedented.
In song, it happens often, but
I think it would be unprecedented.
Sound, we got Oppenheimer at number 1. This is like easy, obviously.
Number 2 is going to be very highly variegated.
I mean, look, I used to have Killers of the Flower Moon, but now I'm kind of like, I don't know why. Because I used to, and some people corrected me on this, I used to think, like, for some reason it was in my head that The Irishman got nominated for sound. But now that I know that it wasn't, I'm kind of like, why would I have the Killers of the Flower Moon in? Like, there's a couple of gunshots, and it's a big movie, but I think they could just go for other stuff.
I agree with you. And, the community, the award expert community has Killers at number 2.
Many people are predicting Killers and Oppenheimer and Poor Things to all have like 12 nominations. That's rare. For that many movies to exceed 12, and I think this is a category where Killers is just not like mandatory. I mean, Power of the Dog getting a sound nomination, like I even felt like that made more sense than this would. A lot of people have Maestro at number 2. That makes sense. I feel like Maestro, even if it doesn't get into Best Picture, will probably get sound.
Yeah.
And it's really, I don't really know exactly what the thing about it is, because it's just like, you're just blasting his music.
You know, it was interesting. I was listening to a video Netflix posted with their sound department and with Bradley Cooper, and they were highlighting a lot of like the mundane stuff, like the sound that his feet make when he's jumping out of bed, and the fact that when he slaps his ass cheeks they go to the music, like little things that I wouldn't really think make you a huge contender for a sound nomination. They were really going over all of it, like how they mix the audio in the scene when he's talking to his daughter and they're like outside. So a lot of the sound work that they're highlighting is invisible during the movie, and I honestly don't know how well that's going to play for voters. Usually you get nominated for having obvious sound, like, you know, gunshots, or, you know, if you're a musical.
Well,
but
yeah.
Maestro is kind of like a musical because it uses a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
of
in
music.
this case, it's just that like when the music plays, it's loud and you feel it.
I guess I know. I know.
I don't know.
But you're just guessing.
Remember, this branch nominated La La Land and Bohemian Rhapsody in both sound categories. They didn't even know what was going on. But now they have the shortlist. Maybe that kind of thing is less likely to happen, perhaps. Because
I don't know, because Maestro would probably
be
be more of a sound mixing player and less of a sound editing, right?
right. That's right.
So,
Well, I mean,
I think it'll probably get nominated, but at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if I saw it get snubbed. Because I don't know exactly what's going on there, and the branch pays attention, you know.
And that's why the Zone of Interest is number 2. Congratulations! Here's why I'm doing it, and it's not just because I'm all biased. All right, that movie has some of the most prominent use of sound out of anything this year.
Yeah, you're thinking about the sound as you watch the film.
Yeah, they're bringing the sound designer along with the cart. Like, he was at a Q&A that I was at, and he got like a special recognition when the LA critics or something gave Mika Levi like score. They were like, special recognition to Johnny Byrne for the sound design. So I think that there's something going on here, and if the movie's in Best Picture, it's a no-brainer. Even if it's not, like, I think that maybe even still, because it just is like such a crucial and interesting element of the movie.
How could you leave it out? Like, if you're a sound voter and you've seen the movie, which you will because it's shortlisted, how would you leave that out? How?
And if you think if Oppenheimer wasn't here, I think it would win.
Really?
Yeah.
You actually think so?
Yeah.
I can give the most sound award to a movie here, and that would probably be like either Napoleon or Ferrari. But Napoleon, I was really surprised when I watched it in the theater how impressive the sound work was. Like, it starts out with a bang, you know, there's a lot of battle going on, and like you can feel every cannon shot, and like there is a lot of sound in the movie. And I'm saying that in an unsophisticated way because, you know, oftentimes that's how this stuff works. If there's just a lot of sound, it feels like everything's whizzing around you. Like, that kind of shit gets you in there. Napoleon has that. It has it going for it. In the first 10 minutes, I was like, this is probably going to get a sound nomination. Maybe that would win sound if there were no Oppenheimer.
The Killer, I'm very mixed on this because at once The Killer has some of the best and most interesting sound work of the year. Like, even compared to other David Fincher films, like the use of perspective with sound is really interesting.
Well, also they did a featurette again. Like, Netflix is doing really interesting featurettes,
and they did it with Society of the Snow, and it couldn't even get in.
About all the crafts they're campaigning for on their YouTube channel, and one of them is The Killer, and the sound it's just fascinating how they put it together and how much detail they put into it. There's a video highlighting the fight scene and just how they wanted to make the footsteps sound and how they wanted to make it feel like the guy was huge who was attacking him, and the house is very fragile, and you're hearing all the creaks. And I think it's really important in the movie. I think The Killer's going to get in here because it's a way for the sound branch to be like, no, this is what we do, and this is the work that we're really interested in.
I do have a feeling, though, that The Killer could be a goose egg contender.
I don't know.
And just like it being generally like kind of underwhelming people, they just might like leave it everywhere out, like in the same way that Nope couldn't get a single goddamn nomination.
Killers, I do think like maybe it goes along with it just being a massive craft player.
Just cause.
Ferrari is hard to say because I didn't watch it in the theater. I watched it at home. But even from home, I could hear there were some like weird sound mixing things going on where sometimes the engines sounded like they were recorded in like the 1960s, and then sometimes they sounded like they were recorded yesterday.
A lot of people think the sound mixing's kind of weird in the movie, actually.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of complaints
Yeah,
about
like
it.
I could hear some of that, and it's definitely there where it's a little strange, like it, and it's hard to say if it's saying something intentionally or not. But the sounds of the engines are very crisp and interesting. It's obviously got a lot of sound, given that it's a racing movie, and there's like race car crashes, and there's just a bunch of like throughout the entire movie. That's like a player just by default.
Remember Rush didn't even get nominated for sound?
Yeah.
Kind of crazy.
I mean, look, if Ferrari doesn't get the BAFTA nomination for sound, no way am I predicting it, because they always do car movies. I wouldn't fault you for putting Ferrari in the top 5, I'll say that, but like maybe those sound mixing complaints do catch up to it.
I feel like the Oscars usually overlook complaints so long as there is a lot of the thing. Barbie, I just don't think it's going to make it into the final 5.
It'd be interesting. It'd be kind of a goofier pick.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't go with everything everywhere, so I'm done with that. Visual effects. Oppenheimer is gone. It's actually very gone because it didn't even make the 20. What's the lesson we learned? What is the lesson we learned? They don't give a fuck if you have practical, if you do not have CGI. They like when you blend the two, but it's not even a blending. Actually, there's a good case that like it shouldn't be there because VFX kind of implies that things were done in post. A lot of people are very upset because they had cool special effects, but maybe that's the thing, is that that's a special effect and not a visual effect. That does make me doubt Poor Things, which many people have at number 1.
Yeah.
Poor Things has
Number
visual
1.
effects. Oh, people have it number 1.
That's kind of insane. Like, is that just saying, oh, well, it's the only film in Best Picture here, so I will put that at number 1.
Well, it's saying that if there is a film in Best Picture in the top 5, it will probably win, which I do agree with. And if there's a film in there that's nominated for production design in the other zone, that's also probably going to win.
My app thinks it's number 5.
One of the things I think is intriguing is that they used whatever they call that, where they have like a whole screen and they design the visual effects for the screen and they project the screen and they film, you know, they have the set like in front of the screen.
Yeah.
That's what they do with a lot of the skies and stuff.
Okay.
A lot of the VFX is like filling out the world. They used some miniatures for some of those like bigger shots of like the chairlifts and stuff.
That's cool. But again, that's sort of a special effect, no? I mean,
no, but they blended that with the visual effects, so I think that they do like consider all that.
They do like miniatures.
They like when you blend them together. I think there's a lot in Poor Things, but at the same time, the visual effects branch, look at what they shortlist. Like they are interested in going for that big $100 million budget battle stuff, and the reason is probably because that is what they typically work on. They go with stuff that's the most visual effects heavy, the stuff that's really like detailed and maybe very technical too. Poor Things might have a difficult case to make that is like the most technical movie. Like, yes, sometimes they go for that smaller thing like Ex Machina, but even Ex Machina, I was like, that is a seamless visual effects, like 3D, like character creation that I can't see any flaws in. That's like really amazing. The integration of the visual effects in the movie is cool, but I think maybe it just won't be like the most impressive thing to this branch. Could it sneak in for the nomination? Would I be surprised? Not really. I think there's maybe enough there. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass. But I just want to stay true to like, okay, they didn't nominate Oppenheimer. Like, see how the movie itself doesn't actually help that much.
Yeah.
They snubbed The Shape of Water and Dunkirk, which were shortlisted. What does that say? The Shape of Water, I mean, that probably had more visual effects than Poor Things, maybe.
And we also know that the bake-offs matter a lot here.
Yeah.
And there's usually like 1 or 2 reports on how those went. And sometimes we do use those to inform our predictions. Like,
Which are
we predicted
mixed effects, I would say.
I guess so,
Mixed
but like
results.
I remember us predicting Solo because of that, and it happened.
The movies that fit the bill, I think there's 3 movies that can maybe win. Guardians 3, they've never given it to a Marvel movie. But the raccoon being a central character in that movie, and like you look into his face and you really like feel for that character.
But
there's a lot of stuff in Guardians.
This is the 3rd Guardians movie, all right?
I know, but it's also never competed with a weaker crop.
The creator could definitely win.
But the creator is not the most successful film. Typically, you want to be like kind of widely seen. And I don't know, the creator, like the reputation overall for that movie was fine. But there's a great narrative to like how they made it work on a little budget. But there's now a new king of that. There's now a new king of that narrative, and it's Godzilla -1, which is a beloved film. It's a beloved film. Everybody has kind of caught word that like you got to see this movie. The fact that it's on the shortlist, I think it's going to be nominated. The lizard looks really good. There are a lot of like big visual effects scenes in that movie that, you know, I don't see why this branch who likes to nominate this type of big blockbuster stuff would have a problem embracing this. I think that can win. I don't see why it couldn't. And just because it's so well liked and because there's, a lot of visual effects. Now, they've never nominated a Godzilla movie.
I've also heard some people say they're a little bit underwhelmed with the visual effects. They think it looks a little not the best.
I actually don't see that from my viewing of the movie. I thought the visual effects were pretty great. Maybe it'll be like how they wanted to give RRR that one little win in song.
Yeah, I think that's very possible because I would say the creator has a better case to win visual effects because people seem very impressed by the visual effects in that movie, but people don't like the creator as much.
People like Guardians though. People thought Guardians 3 was really good. I mean, I don't think that like that's
not going to win. For Marvel, they're not going to give VFX to a Marvel movie. It's not going to happen.
In this year, I think
it's
it
not
can happen.
No. Society of the Snow, I watched the featurette on that for Netflix. There's like the typical stuff like compositing that goes on and like making the mountains in the background. But like most of the film was, in a set.
Probably like a very large chunk of shots in the film have some visual effects because they had to create those mountains. And apparently they like 3D rendered the entire environment because they knew they were going to use this all of them.
So that's impressive, but like also not something that it's not the only film that's going to do
doesn't take it over the top, I would say.
No, I mean the plane crash is probably where they really have to sell you as like an impressive feat because that actually does look really impressive. I mean, obviously like you can't pull that off without visual effects. That could give it the edge and get it in there. I think it has a good case here. Predicting Society of the Snow in a couple categories, probably a good idea. Then Spider-Verse is extremely interesting because it would be the first animated film that's not stop motion to get nominated for visual effects.
The first animated film that they didn't use a camera. Soul was shortlisted, but Soul didn't make it. Spider-Verse for visual effects has always been kind of interesting because I thought like, maybe there's something to it, but looking into it, it seems like it's mainly in the tools that they build for their artists to be able to create these animations. Spider-Verse has its own unique animation style, and so, those are interesting tools that they've made. But most of that work seems like it was probably done for the first film. A lot of people who are kind of looking on the outside, like, the Critics' Choice members or what have you, people who just like Spider-Verse, probably look at it and they say, well, visual effects, I mean, the movie was a really cool looking movie, but I don't think that they're going to take into account, like, this animator made a really cool, like, drawing choice or a stylistic choice. Like, that doesn't... There are a lot of things that don't count that I think...
Well, they're going to need to make the case for visual effects. But look, the fact that they got on the short list means there's something there.
Yeah,
because if they couldn't make...
impressed.
If they could not make a case for why it's VFX and not just like another animated movie, then they would not be here. So, clearly something's going on.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was snubbed. And I couldn't really like object because I don't know what the visual effects are. The fact that the movie has enough buzz that it made it here, though, I think I'm pretty impressed. I also
think Spider-Verse is like a top 15 Best Picture movie.
It is,
and that can't be that could be said for like maybe Society of the Snow, but those are the only two here.
And Poor Things.
Well, Poor Things is a Best Picture.
Mission Impossible, I think there's definitely a case for it. They do a lot of the typical types of visual effects that, a lot of blockbusters have, but they've never nominated one of these movies before. Indiana Jones, I actually think that could get in.
Really?
Just because they've nominated they nominate Marvel shit all the time. They don't usually take into account like a lot of the complaints that people have about the visual effects there.
Yeah, my impression is that people are complaining that the Disney visual effects look cheesy or like that they look
I'll say they're not that bad.
There's also de-aging in that movie, and that's very important. That's a breakthrough that people take seriously.
I mean, look, maybe it's as much as like that Solo movie did, and people were kind of thinking that wouldn't happen. I mean, I could see myself moving Dial of Destiny up. I'll put it at number 6, in fact. Although I do think that like the reputation of the movie sucks, and they probably won't go for it for that reason. BAFTA apparently nominated Crystal Skull, and the Oscars didn't. So I wonder if this could get BAFTA. Rebel Moon, people hate that movie. I think it's not going to happen.
No.
And Zack Snyder, they don't do that. And Napoleon,
I would take it seriously. Napoleon had some impressive visual effects. Like
it probably had like at least what All Quiet did, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But not in Best Picture, and not as well.
There's like a scene where I don't know how they shot it or did it, and there is just so much going on, so much detail in the background and the compositing to build the cities. It's impressive. If it got nominated, I'd be like, hey, that was good. The scene when they're shooting cannons at like ice, and so the cannons are breaking the ice, and you're watching these soldiers and horses like fall into the ice. There's camera angles from everywhere you'd imagine. Under the water, there's like horses sinking with like blood and stuff. I'm like, this looks like a massive piece of work.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
all I'll
look,
say.
maybe Spider-Verse just doesn't get
maybe
in for something
Spider-Verse
like that.
is like, I don't know.
Maybe Society of the Snow they're not that impressed with, and
I'm just gonna keep my ear out for the Bake Off.
animated feature, Spider-Verse, V-Boy and the Heron, but I also not really that much. I mean, I think Spider-Verse is gonna win.
Yeah, I do too.
If Spider-Verse gets visual effects and score, it's pretty fucking good.
It's probably not gonna
Pretty
be close.
fucking. I mean, it could. Elemental is doing fine. I think still there could be a world where that gets snubbed. I mean, Frozen 2 got like everything and still got snubbed. Mutant Ninja Turtles. A lot of people are not confident in it, and it didn't make Critics' Choice. But neither did Mitchell's. It did make Golden Globes. I still think that critics groups overall, that movie is number 3. Nimona has been doing okay. It got both Critics' Choice and Golden Globe, which is great.
Yeah, that's a well-liked, decently popular movie. Wish could be like your number 6, but that's sort of hated.
No, I
people
think
don't
that
like
even though Wish managed to somehow get into Critics' Choice and Golden Globe, they were a little early. And I feel like being later on is not going to work well for Wish, because that reputation of that movie is not great, and they probably watched it on an early screening and they didn't know that they weren't supposed to like it. I think that Robot Dreams is actually the movie that I'm looking out most for. The Peasants is not taking off. It's seemingly not
the
taking
only
off
way
at all.
that The Peasants would get nominated is if this was a branch category like it was a few years ago. I mean, I don't think normal people are going to go out and see The Peasants, and this is a category every voter can vote in.
Loving Vincent was getting nominated absolutely everywhere. But Robot Dreams, that movie is number 4 for critics groups. It is doing surprisingly well. It is apparently very charming and, a good movie for all ages. I don't know if it beats Nimona. Netflix may have more campaigning power than Neon. And I don't think Chicken Nugget... I don't think that the Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget is gonna be Netflix's number 1 horse here. I think Nimona probably is and should be. I think Suzume is just a Golden Globes thing, and Mario is probably not gonna happen. Documentary feature, we have the long list, and what's interesting about the long list is that it has more ties to the IDA nominations than we initially thought. The IDA, looking at it from a standpoint of what the Critics' Choice Documentary Association was going for, they did not overlap in the top 10 at all. Nuts. But we have some of those films showing up here. And that's important because a lot of times you get films and you're like, huh? How did that get in? But then you look and you're like, okay, it got 2 of the following. Indie Spirit, International Documentary Association, or Cinema Eye, either the audience award for Cinema Eye or the regular big award. Those seem to be really good correlators with the Oscar. So if you're looking at this list and you're kind of picking the top 5 of what you've heard of, and you're like, okay, Michael J. Fox, Eternal Memory, Mariupol, American Symphony, Beyond Utopia, you're probably not going to get them all right. Four Daughters I have really high because that won the Gotham Award, and that is an 11-year streak right now if you win that award. And it also got Indie Spirit. It's doing really well. And I have Going to Mars, the Nicky Giovanni project, because that got freaking IDA and Indie Spirit. That's a crazy combo. And I think Cinema Eye as well. And you got to predict something for IDA, I think. And if there was a runner-up to that, I would say Apollonia, which has IDA and Gotham. Indie Spirit's really goddamn good at predicting the Oscar, by the way. They are 3 out of 5 in most years, which is insane. But this year, we only have 2 films from the entire shortlist that are nominated at Indie Spirit, and that's Going to Mars and Four Daughters. We have them both getting in. I don't know if Beyond Utopia is going to win. I don't know if it's locked. It's been doing okay. It got PGA. It has a Cinema Eye audience nomination. It also helps to be a Sundance doc. Those usually do pretty well. 20 Days in Mariupol is also a big Sundance doc, and it's been getting in at most places. Should be fine. I will say Beyond Utopia hasn't been flawless. American Symphony, you might think, well, I mean, that movie got 2 shortlists, so clearly it's getting in. But you gotta realize this is a completely different branch, and I wouldn't be shocked if it got a song nomination without documentary feature. The Eternal Memory didn't get the only thing that Eternal Memory has is Cinema Eye and Critics' Choice. It didn't get PGA. It doesn't have Indie Spirit or IDA. So I actually think that's a great contender for a movie people think's getting nominated but won't. And Michael J. Fox movie, I mean, that movie is like a prime contender for a shocker snub.
Well, actually, if you look at my app, you have 21%
Really?
only predict that for nomination.
Because the Michael J. Fox movie is by far the leader with critics.
Yeah, but people are sensing that won't happen. I think because
I guess
people
they
have a general impression that these like celebrity sort of
They
documentaries
fucking should.
Yeah.
The Roger Ebert one, the Jane Goodall one got snubbed. The Mr. Rogers one got snubbed. Okay?
Yeah.
And that got a lot more. So I feel like Michael J. Fox, that is the documentary branch ain't gonna bite. I just don't think they're gonna bite. I think Apollonia could sneak in there. Eternal Memory is a contender. The Mother of All Lies, I'm shocked, did not make it here because that had IDA, Indie Spirit, and PGA. You know, Bobby Wine actually won the IDA, but I don't necessarily see a correlation there, and that hasn't been showing up much else. The International Feature Shortlist. What do we got here? Zone of Interest, probably going to win. That's pretty good for it. Like, Anatomy of a Fall would probably fucking win if it was here, but France decided to do a stupido pick.
I mean, you have to predict whatever gets Best Picture, and Zone of Interest is obviously the closest to Best Picture out of all these.
Society of the Snow is number 2. I mean, if people don't see it now, they will, because it's probably going to get nominated for more than just International Feature.
Yeah.
It's kind of all quiet light in some ways. It feels like that. Perfect Days. Oof. I feel like I'm gonna get Decision to Leave here because I like that movie a lot, and like for some reason I just and there's no evidence for it, so I'm not gonna do it. But man, I'm kind of worried that it'll be like that, but maybe not. Maybe I'm just making things up to be worried about. Because overall, the movie seems very palatable. Fallen Leaves is doing excellently. Everybody's nominating it. People really like it. I'm kind of surprised, but I don't think it's necessarily that bad of a surprise. And The Taste of Things. This is I will say. Rarely do 3 Cannes films get in. Most of the time, only 2 Cannes films get in. I actually look at this and I was like, really? Because that's typically where all the international films come from. And we have 4 in here.
4, yeah.
So if you wanted to make it not 4, you could go for The Monk and the Gun or The Teacher's Lounge if you wanted to. Or maybe Totem. Totem could be a late riser like The Quiet Girl, but I don't think it's quite like that. I don't think it's going to go this way, actually. I'm like looking at it and I'm like, I think that this is like... this is the 5 that like makes the most sense. You know, The Monk and the Gun, Bhutan, you know, that director's last film, which people liked a lot less, The Yak in the Classroom, that got in. Teacher's Lounge hasn't been doing as well as I think it could. 4 Daughters is possible. Her last film also surprised and got into this category. They always throw you for at least one surprise in this category. It's never a locked-in 5. Original song. I'm Just Ken and What Was I Made For are basically, they are just locked in. But most people think What Was I Made For is winning.
In the award expert community, out of 1,200 people, 59% think I'm Just Ken's winning. 37% think What Was I Made For is winning. I mean, that's pretty close.
Well, what's interesting is, you know, I don't know if they're gonna split, you know, because if Billie Eilish starts winning, I'm gonna be like, okay, this might just like sweep. I don't know if people care that she just won an Oscar for song. I also wonder if I'm Just Ken being in the movie and being like, you know, an actual song that people sing, I'm still going to give it the edge, and it's a little bit hope-dicting, and I admit it.
You know, I think people have caught on to the fact that you can't have 3 Barbie songs. Like, it's actually illegal, according to the rules. And so, because of that, because everybody is predicting the top 2, Dance the Night is number 15.
This rule actually got implemented like 2 years ago. Before that, I would have definitely predicted the top 3, all three of those to get in. Yeah.
Really?
Because they've nominated 3 songs before, and man, are these songs all very strong. Then we got the Diane Warren slot, which we have confirmation is going to be The Fire Inside and not 80 for Brady. Me predicting 80 for Brady, it's not like a wrong prediction. Like, the reason I predicted it, I was still right, because I
may as well have been the Diane Warren.
Reason for predicting
the Diane Warren slot.
I have It Never Went Away from American Symphony. I feel like the John Batiste love that we saw on the short list is going to manifest here, and he's going to get nominated. And actually, a lot of people are feeling this. I'm not like clutch for calling this. Everybody thinks this, it seems. Road to Freedom from Rustin. I mean, look, Lenny Kravitz being on that song, like, it's working. And he got Critics' Choice and Golden Globe. And this is the top 5 for everybody, it seems. Keep It Moving, Color Purple hasn't been making it in. It's just not like one of the showstopper songs.
People are still predicting it, to be fair.
Yeah,
and
but
people are also predicting Can't Catch Me Now still.
That's because they're Olivia Rodrigo fans. Maybe the Oscars will love Past Lives and they will nominate the song. I think that is one of the more possible things to happen. The Hunger Games song, that it didn't get in at Critics' Choice and Golden Globe when previous Hunger Games songs did, and the Oscars have never nominated a Hunger Games song. Get that out of there. You shouldn't. These people shouldn't be predicting that. Flora and Son got 2 songs in, but I don't know about that. Actually, you know what? The Spider-Verse song, they don't often nominate like hip hop shit, but I think that is possible. The song from Killers would be a very unlikely contender. Are a lot of people predicting that just because they see that the Killers of the Flower Moon is a song and they go, oh, Killers?
Surprisingly, no.
Okay, well, they're right.
2% of people are predicting it.
That's not going to happen, yeah. Yeah, the Asteroid City one, same thing. I don't think so. All right, finally, SAG Ensemble. Should we even do this one? Because we actually have to predict SAG soon. We'll save it. We'll save it for the SAG predictions. What's coming up in Oscar awards world is that the BAFTA longlists are on the 5th, and the Golden Globes are on the 7th. And then, there's a bunch of shit happening in January, leading up to the Oscar nominations less than a month away. Go download Brother Bros app and make your Oscar prediction dreams come true.
Hopefully I don't do something that will break the leaderboard feature that I'm currently working on, but might break, might not.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
If you had to nominate Napoleon for one Oscar, which one would it be?